Reunert has businesses in electrical engineering, information and communication technologies, and defense and allied electronics.
Yeah, I think Alan Dixon, the new CEO, is sort of emphasizing the split slightly differently. So there's cabling and that kind of electrical stuff, and then there is Nashua, that's the power equipment, but actually more like photocopiers. And then there are a bunch of other lending operations and some defense, but they don't call it defense anymore.
Applied electronics.
Yeah, thank you very much. But anyway, sorry, market cap.
And I said allied electronics, so it's applied electronics.
Yeah, I
so.
guess, but I think that's a new term.
So
Electronics.
11.6 billion rand is where we stand from a market cap perspective. PE ratio of 10.7 and a dividend yield of 6.5%. Sure, nice dividend yield there, JP.
Very cash generative business, which is quite strange because if you think about the businesses, cable manufacturing, renting out office equipment like photocopiers, you don't think necessarily it'll be a very cash generative business. But for instance, in the manufacturing cabling operations, it's very old machines. There isn't a lot of maintenance or depreciation, so a lot of cash gets generated, but that needs to happen because there's not a lot of growth. So there's not a lot of space in the business to reinvest a lot of the cash that gets generated, and that's why Reunert has always been a company that over time has had a lot of cash and said, we're looking for the next big thing, to move the dial, to make another acquisition that will grow our earnings. Because without an acquisition, this company's earnings, I don't see growing strongly for the foreseeable future.
Well, let's get the share price graph up before you comment.
Yeah, that looks a bit ragged there. 5 years, in a bit of a channel, going sideways, good years, bad years, earnings growth, earnings decline. Look, for a while, the market thought that the Nashua mobile business would be the new future, but then they sold the customer base because they were under pressure from the networks, MTN, Vodacom, and the likes. So that's out of the mix. The manufacturing operations, well, the cabling is partly copper cable, but also optic fiber cable. So that's been okay-ish, but it's not as though they're the only producers in the whole world. So there's that concern.
You're not sounding too enthusiastic about the Reunert story.
It's been a bit of a laggard, and you can see that there. So it's been an industrial conglomerate that's been under pressure. It's very old and established. You know, it's been in existence since the 1880s here in Johannesburg. You know, its founders, Otto Lenz and the other guy, literally were instrumental in the electrification of central Joburg when they turned off the gas lamps in the 1880s.
There was much more attention on Reunert in previous cycles, and it was one of those stocks that was well thought of by the market.
Yes, the previous cycle was an infrastructure-led growth cycle. So people said South Africa needs to spend in infrastructure and therefore a lot of cabling. Eskom is behind the curve.
The appropriate supply
they
chain.
are in the sweet spot. So yes, so it was in the right space to benefit from the upside. We've seen the downside in the infrastructure spend in our economy. Eskom seems to have caught up by spending, making sure we won't have load shedding again this winter. So I don't see the next cycle being as good for Reunert as the previous one. And that is why they need to employ their cash to diversify away from their old business units. The applied electronics business is the one that has benefited from the weak rand with their exports of fuses.
What kind of things do they sell there? Do
Well,
they have
fuses, radar equipment to
okay.
India and other places. So the
Yeah.
weaker rand has benefited that business, which was historically quite small.
That's
And
the
now
old Grinica electronics business which they acquired, which had defense contracts.
I think the Grinica one went to a smaller company that also does the aerials. I forgot their name now.
Okay.
But it is the old Reutech business, radar, fuses, etc. And that is becoming more important with the weaker rand. But still, they need to make an acquisition. That's what it comes down to. And without that,
And there's no
earnings will
acquisition
flatline.
in sight at the moment.
Doesn't seem that
Hot
way.
or not?
not hot.
Hot or not?
Well, I think they could do something, but you can't buy on a promise. I'm afraid not hot under the current environment, even though I do acknowledge the new younger management team has done a good job. I think for the moment it's still a bit of a show and tell, so not hot.